Hello and welcome everyone. I want to start another project of the rock band of my friends, and I wanted to take this opportunity to just show you how I like to set up my projects when I plan to make something big with lots of tracks. Of course, you can not always plan these kind of things. Like when you're making music casually and just making beats, then it's much more likely that you're just starting with a little idea and accidentally end up with a big project. But when you already know that you have a big project, then you can also just make big steps at the beginning already. So the first step is to just drag every track into the project. If you don't see a BPM written on the file names, then you have to figure that out yourself, but one good thing is there is a demo, so you can actually listen to how the sound was pre-mixed, which can be really useful, also later for comparing the mixes. Now if you're using Bitwig, you have to be aware that if your default time stretch mode for long samples is set to elastic, then you have to manually change that to raw. Gladly you can just select all of the tracks and do that at once. But there is a little bit of a problem, because then you still have to go into all these files and check if when you're dragging them out inside, if there was something lost. Like in this case, it actually cut off some of the stuff at the end. So yeah, you have to be careful with these kind of things. This is already too far. I don't know actually why we have to do that, because it seems like when you're switching from elastic to raw, then that should also imply that you now want to use with a full sample automatically, but I don't know what exactly the algorithm is that prevents this to be a thing here. Something cut off here, no. Huh? Why does it cut off when this thing is actually, well, maybe it was just weirdly exported. Okay, now that we have that, we can actually make these tracks a little bit smaller. Now if this was Cubase, you could just select everything and then set a cut. But this is Bitwig, so you have to do it individually for some reason. I know the video is already starting with lots of criticism against Bitwig, but I just want to take this opportunity for maybe the Bitwig developers themselves to also see what is a realistic workflow in their DAW and how can it still be improved. Because that's definitely, in Germany we would say Meckern auf hohem Niveau, because this DAW is already great. Okay, so the next step is finding out the BPM. That can be a little bit problematic if you are not sure if the people who have recorded this actually started the recording on a whole bar. I know that this band always does that, so I don't have to take any further measures, and I can just immediately start tweaking the number until it fits. This looks pretty much alright. And then you can go somewhere else to check if it still works. Without the demo. Yeah. Okay, so I think this is pretty much 86 BPM. Now I can finally save the project. Oh shit, I accidentally overwrote my init preset, because I just tweaked the init preset and then I forgot I have to save as to not overwrite the init preset again. But I guess I'll just have to make a new init preset later. And for now, I just have to manually select the folder with the projects. The hills. Darien geep. Now the next reasonable step would be aligning the demo track with the rest of the music, because apparently it wasn't. Okay, this part seems to be easy to align because it's such a signature waveform here. Okay, cool. In moments like this, it would be very helpful if this line that appears when we are hovering this point was also there when we're not hovering it, so that we can tweak the position of this thing. Also, it's still kind of hard to say the things overlap perfectly. Oh, okay, that was a clear sign that it didn't. Slightly more here. Okay, I think that's good enough. Yeah, sounds very overlaid. I don't even hear low pass filtering artifacts. Now the next thing that I want to do is just make the tracks shorter, so that I get a better overview about the arrangement of things. Now in this case, it would be very helpful if there was parameter somewhere on the GUI that lets me increase the depth of the waveform without actually making it louder, just like in Cubase, because that way, we can actually see much more of the little noise and where it actually ends, fading out. That's always a problem when working with real recordings, that you cannot be sure where it actually ends without listening to it, because sometimes waveforms go so deep into silence that it looks like they are already silent, but they are not. And then you end up cutting too early, which can be very frustrating, even though you can always recover from that. But you know, in the middle of mixing, you might not even notice first, and then you might end up exporting something that doesn't have all the sounds in it that should be there. These kind of things that are very close to the silence, they can sound very nice, so you really shouldn't underestimate them. Okay, so now we have sorted some stuff, and we can already see that whatever all this is belongs into some sort of group. We don't know yet what the group should be named, but this is definitely some group stuff. Then we know that there is some very basic stuff for the entire song. And I want to put that over the group, but yeah. Oh, okay, it works. Now what is this? Is this drums? Yeah, these are electronic drums. Unfortunately, all put into one track, no matter if kick or snare. I don't know what the deal is with doing it like that, because there is so much you can do with individual drum tracks. But anyway, let's just keep it like that for now and instead check out what the other stuff is. Okay, bassline. So as you can see now, I'm in the rearranging tracks and giving stuff names phase. Now we have a guitar. Okay, this is a guitar and it sounds kind of distant and phasey. Maybe I will have less technical names for the tracks later when I found the personality of each track a little bit more. Because, you know, every track has a certain personality. You have to imagine them like living beings, in my opinion. And if you do that, then you can make sure that you understand the function of each track more. But just to get started, it just makes sense to give the things technical names because it's easier. We have very nicely sung vocals, but with lots of bleed from the guitar for some reason. Maybe we make a little comment so that we can actually bring up this problem later with the band. Maybe they want to re-record that or anything. What do we have here? Okay, so this is a synth that plays sort of a staccato thing or something that you would hear in a Italo house track, even though I don't think this is anywhere close to that. Now we have these special tracks that only come sometimes, probably some sort of chorus lines. Okay, drum tracks. We have a kick drum, even though it's kind of a sandy kick drum. It sounds a bit like sand in my opinion, not a oomphy kick drum. What do we have here? Okay, we have a snare, and it sounds very smacky already, which is cool. We have a tom mic and a ribbon mic. I don't know what that means even, but the sound's kind of weird. It sounds kind of like, almost like there is some sort of comp filter artifacts on it. These GJ things, I don't know what GJ means, but it sounds like the hi-hats are very in the foreground here. Oh, a massive room. It sounds like there is already some artificial reverb on it. Okay, so these are actually the other drums. So the chorus probably just consists of electronic drums plus electronic drums, and everything else just stays the same or plays something a little bit more exciting. The next step could be, I could come up with more groups that I will definitely make anyway. For example, here is the group between E-drums and bass, so that I can later put distortion on both together to get them melted into each other. And then we have left the phasey guitar, the vocals with lots of bleed, and the staccato synthesizer, which can definitely be made much smaller. And now that we know that this is a staccato-ish synthesizer, we actually know that it does not have decaying or releasing or reverberating sound, so we can actually cut it off right when the melody stops. And then we already have a much better overview over everything. Now interestingly, the synthesizer was played by hand, because you can sometimes see it right on the point and sometimes not. Should probably be very beneficial later, because it's not so artificial. A break in the vocals and in the guitar. Does the guitar have reverberation? What? Wait, why? I'm soloing this track. No, I'm also soloing this track. Okay. One thing about Cubase again, by the way. I'm saying that because Bitwig is really not meant for the kind of work that I'm doing right now, and that's what just one of those moments where you can really see that. Because when you are mixing rock music or anything like with lots of real instruments, and you have to have a really good organization of your tracks with lots of folders and groups and buses and stuff, then you can easily forget that you somewhere soloed or muted a certain track. And that's why in Cubase, up here, somewhere up here, you have two solo and mute global buttons that you can use to just solo everything or mute everything with just the click of one button. And of course, soloing everything just makes no sense. That's like playing everything together, but you can also click it to just unsolo everything then, and then nothing is soloed, and that, however, is very useful. I think it wouldn't be too hard to get some features like this into Bitwig as well. It probably wouldn't be here because it's not the main feature of this type of DAW, but it should be somewhere, you know. Maybe it's here. No, it's not. I mean, why not here? There is lots of space left. It would look a little bit less sleek, but I mean, these are not a lot of buttons yet, and a lot of them are way too big anyway. There is a lot of room for potential in my opinion. Okay, so I think we prepared all of the stuff, and we can already say that this is like the main stuff, except for E-drums and bass. Like E-drums and bass is like the body of the music, the fundament of the house, and the main stuff is just for saying that this is the character of the music. With the drums G, I put a G there for group to make it a bit more obvious, even though the symbol of the folder also makes it obvious. Now the next thing that I want to do before going on is actually finding a good color scheme for the track, for the project, because I don't like it to be too colorful. And I made this one project where you can make your own color schemes. But first of all, I need to find out which colors I want to have in this piece of music. Okay, I found a color scheme that I want to use, so I can just attach all of the colors. Okay, nice. I like that. Now the demo could stick out in a more dark way, so that it tells us, okay, this is only needed sometimes, not very often. The darker colors in Bitwig, I find them less readable. And if something is really dark, it's like my way of saying that this is probably not as important. Now we want to find a good gainstaging for everything. And now the groups actually already come into play, because you can start the gainstaging by just gainstaging the overall volume of the things, and you don't have to think in such small steps already. Let's go. Okay, now getting the drums right seems to be a bit hard because all of these mics introduce so much of the high end, especially the harsh part of the high end. And the worst offender seems to be the kick actually. Running out of headroom here, so getting back with the group to a high volume, starting off again. Alright, so now I got a basic gain staging, even though I didn't care for the synthesizer yet. When you are working with the track, you have to kind of follow the feeling in yourself. Because there is no step-by-step thing to do when the creative work actually starts. It can vary a lot from each track to the next. And the first thing that I want to do is figure out why the fuck the crash cymbal is so offbeat here. I mean, why? Really? Also, such a cheap sounding crash cymbal. It's like it was cut off strongly here, like. I mean, okay, it should sound a bit synthetic because it's like an E-drum set, and it's like the flavor of the E-drum to have something like that. But such an aggressive crash sound. Maybe that is something that needs to change later on. So it's good that this demo track exists because that way we can use the notepad here to make comments about things that we communicate to the band later when we talk about stuff to them. For example, crash cymbal, offbeat and weird sound can be discussed or at least explained. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding this element. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is vocals bleed. I'm not planning to actually already put a reverb on the vocals. I just wanted to see where things can go when I'm doing that later. And my result is it sounds very good. But maybe the bleed is walking too much into the delay, into the reverb. Through the night with the hills so high, view so bright, hills so high, view so. At moments like this, I'm always wondering if I can use audio restoration. Through the night with the hills so high, view so bright, hills so high, view so bright. Okay, that was pretty good. Now, we could also try Bertom's denoiser. Through the night with the hills so high, view so bright,
hill so high, view so bright.
Also pretty good. And what I also always like to use, even though it sounds more creative, is digitalis, because it's also basically a denoiser.
Through the night with the hill so high, view so bright, hill so high, view so bright.
Now we have used 3 different denoisers and see how far they got us without getting too many artifacts.
Through the night with the hill so high, view so bright.
Now if we also put the high pass filter in there, now let's see what the difference is.
Through the night with the hill so high, view so bright, hill so high, view so bright.
So as you can see, you can get really far with audio restoration without destroying the sound or anything like that. Now what else could we already point out before we go on with the important stuff? I think the drum tracks are really well actually. They will not be offending in process later. Smashing. Yeah, I think this will be sort of a smashing tone later on. Very good. We have this interesting solo here in the center of the track. And that's probably why the vocals were cut off drastically here in order to get the transition to work really fine. The problem is that the band assumes that they already should do this cut and not me. Because that way we now have the situation where the vocals just cut off extremely here. But the synthesizer actually comes in only here and there is a gap in between. It's just not a good idea to assume that your cuts are perfect if you are not very proficient at cutting things. Maybe it's not that bad because there are enough other elements in the track that kind of also are a little bit more offbeat. I'm just used to these kind of changes being very audible because of electronic music and everything. Yeah, this is my basic way to set up a new project, and everything else that comes from here, like, you know, whatever comes to my mind, equalizing individual sounds so that they have less resonances or their sweet spot more enhanced, and then working my way towards the overall goal. That's something that can be structurized a little bit less predictably. So at this point I will just stop the video.